In the book, you also tell a story of visiting a demolished Palestinian home.
Yes.
And that one is also just like, so talk a little bit about the process of how Palestinians have to build places to live and how they're often they're demolished because they're all theoretically illegal. But then how you actually meeting some Palestinians who own the demolished house and how that actually came about.
Well, every year we try to see a demolished house, and in that particular year, and the demolitions are both demolitions of the homes of Israeli citizens who are of Palestinian ethnicity, and also, of course, of Palestinians in the occupied territories. The intent is to crowd, if you can't get rid of all the Palestinians, to crowd them into smaller and smaller areas, kind of like Indian reservations. And so they're denied permission to build, even on their own land, even on land that they've bought. And so what happens, especially in the refugee camps, is that people can't build out, so they build up. So you have, if you see a 4-story house, that's 4 generations of a family that live there. But now those houses are approaching the carrying capacity of their foundations. So now there's kind of a crisis. This particular home you're referring to was in al-Fahim, which is actually inside Israel. It's in a so-called mixed city where there are both Palestinian citizens of Israel and Jewish citizens of Israel living in somewhat in proximity. And the Palestinian quarters, people can't get permits, and so often they build without permits. This particular situation was one in which there was a whole new neighborhood being developed for professional people, and they didn't have the permits yet, but they had been told that the permits would be forthcoming. So these 3 families went ahead and built a 3-family, 3-story house. And then one night in the middle of the night, the helicopters came, the tanks came and surrounded them, cut them off from their neighbors. They were given 15 minutes to take their kids and if they could find the family photo albums and clear out. And then the house was, the backhoe comes in and breaks the foundation, and then they smash it down from the roof. And so we came upon this scene 36 hours after the actual demolition. Usually it's a colder site that we go to, but this one was new. And you could see in the bulldozer treads the bright plastic fragments of children's toys. You could see on a broken concrete pillar a woman's scarf dangling sort of listlessly in the wind. And so we were with our guide. He was explaining what had happened. And then all of a sudden this car came racing up to the site, and these 2 very well-dressed men, jumped out with cases of bottled water and came up to us and began very insistently handing us the bottled water. And, we said to our guide who was translating, well, this is nice, thanks for the water, but who are these guys? Well, it turned out they were the owners of that demolished building. And they said that they were ashamed in greeting us that they couldn't offer us the customary cup of tea, but because we were in their home, or what remained of it, they were hosts, they had obligations, and so they were bringing us water instead. It turns out one of them had a master's degree in accounting from Italy. The other was, I think, an architect trained in Belgium, highly educated people, and, there they were in the rubble of their demolished home. So that's another kind of thing that we see on every trip. There are many demolished homes. Take your pick.
I'm talking again to Professor Eve Spangler about her new book, Understanding Israel and Palestine. In the book, you use the term sociocide. Explain what that means and how it relates to the conflict.
Well, again, the basis of the conflict is that Zionism wants to be an ethno-religiously exclusive place, but half the people under its control are not Jewish and therefore not the desired population. So what do you do with those people? Well, in 47, 48, 49, when the Israeli state was formed, they were militarily expelled, as many of them as the Israeli militias and then army could possibly manage to expel. That left about 20% of Israel's citizens being people of Palestinian heritage. And then with the occupation beginning in 1967, where Israel also took over the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza and the Golan Heights, they also took back all those Palestinians who had fled to those areas. So now half the people are people they don't want. So what do you do with them? It's very bad publicity if you start rounding them up and putting them in cattle trucks and dumping them across the border. It's even worse publicity if you shoot them. So what you do is you try to completely control and dominate them, herd them into very small, unsustainable areas, and either subdue them there or make their life so miserable that they will leave voluntarily. And that's what sociocide is about. You create a regime in which anybody who needs a permit to widen their path or dig their well deeper or send grandma to the doctor in Jordan or go to a family wedding outside the area needs a permit. And you announce that you will give permits to anyone who's willing to inform on their neighbors. So you sow this psychological level of distrust between neighbors, teachers and students, family members. You interfere, you put up 500 checkpoints inside the West Bank, which is about the fifth the size of New Jersey. So imagine driving around New Jersey, a fifth of New Jersey, and encountering 500 checkpoints. It interferes with the economy. You interfere with the politics. If the people you don't like get elected, you suspend their government. So this is sociocide. You destroy the culture. You take all the archives. So you're killing the society. You're not necessarily killing individual human bodies, but you're killing the viability of the community that those bodies need in order to survive. And, it is really, I think, a source of enormous optimism for all human beings that that plan isn't succeeding, that the resilience of Palestinians and their insistence on staying alive under these very difficult circumstances is such that it's not working, but that's the attempt.
Many people use the term apartheid state when you talk about what's going on there. You kind of don't think that term is 100% accurate. Explain.
I think it's descriptively accurate. Apartheid, of course, as you know, means apartness. And particularly the legal systems, there are at least 4 legal systems operating. There's civil law for Israeli Jews. There's an inferior set of rights, but some for Palestinian citizens of Israel. There's military law in the West Bank and Gaza, and people live without any kind of citizenship, but only residency permits in Jerusalem. So that's at least 4 different systems of law in operation there. So apartheid is a descriptor for saying these people live under different systems, sure. But I don't think it gets at what motivates this system to be put in place, because apartheid was an attempt in South Africa to control black workers. The attempt in Israel is to expel Palestinians, not to control them, but to expel them, which is why they're now importing guest workers, Thai guest workers, African guest workers, and why you see so much unrest and deportations being argued in those populations. They're brought in to replace Palestinian labor because the attempt there is to expel. And so for that reason, I think ethnic cleansing is more descriptive, less metaphorical. And sociocide is a term that Palestinian intellectuals use, and so I also like it because I think we should give Palestinians the right to name their own experience.